So I saw everyone do the breath thing, so I definitely want to do the breath thing. So can we just like, ready? You gotta be synchronistic about this. Ready? Okay, 3, 2, 1. God, that feels good. So I remember when I was a kid, one of my first memories was I was so afraid of death. Like seriously, I was like one of those like little Asian kids. I was like, oh my God, I'm gonna die. And I was afraid of everything, okay? And I remember when I was yay high, I was so afraid that I would just crawl into my parents' bedroom, and while they were asleep, I would just put my finger on their nose to see if they were breathing. And of course, like from their point of view, they never woke up and saw me do that because I think they'd be like super weird, like, yo, my kid's possessed. Like imagine any one of those movies when the little kid just like singing those ring around the rosy, and you think it's like haunted or whatever. I wasn't one of those kids. I don't think I was possessed. I don't think I had demons inside of me. Just ecstatic danced it out. I just staged it out. We're all good. But this was the initial motivator for me as a kid. You know, this is like ever since I was like a little kid, I remember I would just like walk through life and then I don't know, it would just hit me, death is coming. I was so afraid, I would just cry. 12 years old, cry. I would always just have this mentality of, holy crap, life is so short, and if we don't do the thing that we were put on this earth to do, then we would just kind of like wash away in the sands of time. And that shit like freaked me out so freaking much. Like there's so many people over here that have this gift inside of them, that have this genius, this zone of genius that they don't even know it's there because they're afraid to ask them the right questions. But for me, that intention of wanting to do something in my life, that intention of wanting to be more and do more instead of just getting like a free handout from like society or the government or other people. I don't know what happened, you know, I ended up forgetting about it. You know, I started getting older, the ego started coming into place. I stopped focusing on my mortality, I stopped focusing on my purpose, I stopped focusing on what actually fueled me as a child ever since I was young, and I started worrying about what other people thought. You know, and it got to the point where you start losing your passion and you start adopting the limiting beliefs of other people. How many of you guys can relate? You guys maybe feel like shit, but then you're like, wait, I'm observing my mind. This isn't my thoughts. I actually don't feel like shit. And what's crazy is as I kept on going older, you know, what happened is I started to forget my passion, I started forgetting my purpose, and I started going into the mold of like what society wanted me to do. Like, oh hey Mike, if you want to be like a really good boy and you know you want to become successful, you just stay in school, you get good grades. Let's actually see if you guys can understand. Maybe you know you had similar limiting beliefs or whatever, because like I did. I mean, I'm not freaking perfect, but money is the root of all. Money is the root of all. You work really, really hard until you, okay, that's messed up. You know, everyone was programmed the same. We were all programmed to work until we die, instead of working until retire, which is what most people work till. And this concept didn't really hit me because, of course, like when you get older and the ego happens, you start worrying about other people thinking, you start like focusing on your like appearances instead of what's actually going on inside. You start losing it. And for me, you know, I went into a different flow, which what was talked about, except this was the flow of the autopilot, where every single time I blink, I didn't know this, but like maybe 2 years pass. Or how many times are you guys like back at home and you guys are driving through traffic, maybe coming down Ubud, or like that long ass road in Tegalalang, because I used to live there for like 6 months. And then without even noticing, you know, 15 minutes pass, and you're like, what the hell happened with my life? And one of the biggest things, the wake-up calls, was me realizing that I was too much in flow in the autopilot of the things that I wasn't actually planning in my life, that years were passing by. I started seeing my parents getting older. I started seeing them kind of get older, and then this need for fulfilling our things that society thinks we need, you know, we just started losing our time. And I remember it was crazy. You know, I was, I think, 19, 20 years old at the time. I was supposed to be a dentist, because if you're not a dentist as an Asian person, you're like disowned. And it's actually really sad, you know. And what happened was, I remember everything started falling apart. And in that moment in time, it was like the worst day of my life, you know? Imagine you're like 19 years old and your dad calls you while you're like supposed to be having fun, drinking, like doing the thing in college. And he's like, Mike, you know, I don't know if we could actually pay for your college education. Can I borrow $2,000? For someone in their 40s or 50s to be so vulnerable and realizing that, holy crap, we don't have anything. The mortgage, we don't know how to pay it. We're gonna have to file for bankruptcy. Mom and dad are fighting. You hear these things and then you start trying to escape. And that was like my initial personal development. It wasn't really, oh, I wanna grow myself every day and every way. I'm getting better and better. It was just me trying to escape the shitty situation that I was in. I remember when I was like laying down and looking up at the ceiling in the middle of the night. I was in that point in my life, the liminal space, where I wasn't necessarily where I wanted to be, but I also wasn't used to be, and it's very of an important space because all it takes is one negative person to bring you back to who you used to be, to prevent you from growing. And I was like laying there and I was like wondering, okay, what happens if I actually do the thing that I thought I needed to do? You know, go to school, get good grades, become a dentist, get a wife, white picket fence, everything good and dandy. Like, what would actually happen? And I visualized it, you know? And I visualized 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, because I was always afraid of what would my life look like if I don't follow the path that society told me to do. And what happened is, initially I was afraid because of the unknown. Like, oh, I don't know, like Tim Ferriss calls it fear setting, or fear whatever, but you basically analyze what it is that you're afraid of, and most of the times it's the unknown. And then I realized that actually, the thing that I was trying to run away from was the thing that I was afraid of the most. You know, me wanting to become a dentist, my dream that I thought was happening in society was actually the biggest mistake, because imagine if I was like 10, 20 years old, I'm surrounded with like a wife that maybe I'm not in love with, a relationship that's not passionate because that was just enough then and there. I was at a job that didn't fulfill me. I was in a position in life where things happen, and then what happens? I die. At that moment, you start realizing, holy crap, maybe the worst thing that could happen isn't actually the thing that you're afraid of, but that's the cave that you need to enter the most. And for me, it was the unknown of what to do when the plan isn't set up for all of you. So that's what I did. It was a crazy amount of time. I went from a lot of friends to like 2 friends. I went with the support of my parents, the support of nobody. I had a really loving relationship at the time, but because of like my craziness and like the up and down and trying to figure out myself and reading all these books and having them be like, no, just read Think and Grow Rich, read The Secret, it'll change your life. And it literally looks like I was possessed. I literally lost everybody. Then after that, I also decided to quit being a dentist, and here I was at ground zero. And I had no idea what to do, but the craziest thing is from that, and what I'm gonna go over today, the concepts that you're gonna take, is what happened from there was the most insane thing in the world. Like, I'm looking back and I'm like, holy crap, Kevin definitely saged my life before he actually knew me. Maybe he taught me about flow state in like a past life or something. Maybe, Cyrus was like, we go. He was just like whispering in my ear as he was saging my soul. And what happened after was insane, because within those 12 months of at the lowest of low, I ended up building a huge audience of 200,000 people. I went from 0 to $1.5 million in 12 months. And not only that, but I ended up figuring out a way to do it in a way where it wasn't because I was chasing a trend or chasing the world, but instead allowing the world and the universe to gravitate to me. And the thing about that is I'm not special. I mean, you guys, if you see me in that static dance, I'm just like that weird guy that he's too much in the static dance. But to just remind you that we're very powerful creatures, but sometimes we forget just how powerful we are. And these concepts were the ones that changed my life forever. And if you start implementing these concepts, it doesn't matter what happens. You can have the worst relationship in the world. You maybe didn't have a positive childhood. Maybe like someone didn't love you. Maybe someone judged you. Maybe you lost a lot of money in a business deal and went south and you're like, what the fuck? Like, this is the only, I'm the only person that life is happening to, and it seems like everyone else is having a good time and I'm the one that's just experiencing this shit. Has anyone ever actually experienced that they think that they're only ones that are going through shit? We all go through shit. And this is the craziest thing that happened from that. One of the first concepts that I learned was how much of the world is like a mirror, okay? And you guys are in this community, so you know what fractals are. If you guys do the freaking plant medicine, you'll start seeing things that at what is at the big micro level or macro level is the exact same in the micro level. And it's the exact same thing with us and humans. If for example, Daniel and I'm judging him, it's not actually that I'm judging him, he's just a mirror to me judging myself. And that my perception of the world was just actually a reflection of me. My reaction to the world was just an awareness of me. And here I was just blaming the world. I was like, why is it the case? Why am I not successful? Why can't I just win the lottery? Why can't I be a fucking basketball player? Why can't I do the things that I want to do? Why can't there just be this yellow brick road for me to just skip down and I just get the life that I want? But that's when I realized life didn't happen to me, it happened for me. And had I had that easy road, I wouldn't have become the person that grew to the point that actually deserved the thing that it is that they wanted. And many of you guys right now, you might be here, you're like, oh man, there's like this conscious university thing, like there's gonna be like cacao and dancing and like shirtless dudes and like girls that are fairies, like I wanna go. You're laughing because it's the truth. I mean, that's what I'm hearing. But let's be honest, what's the reason why we're actually all here? I mean, deep down, and this is the reason why I'm here, there's something inside of us that feels alone. There's something inside of us that feels misunderstood. It almost feels like everyone here seems like they're the crazy friends out of their friend group back at home. And Bali's just kind of like a place where we all kind of like hang out, right? But there is a really crappy situation in your life. Right now, you are going through, you're like, man, this is the worst. I don't know if I can get out of it. But the craziest thing, when you like connect the dots looking back, like what Steve Jobs said, you realize that that worst day of your life is actually the best day of your life. Because had you have not been through such emotional trauma, you wouldn't have been motivated to become the person you are right now. Such amazing, powerful human beings. Unicorns, fairies, DJs. And this is the craziest thing, because if you really think about it, everything that we're going through right now, the worst case scenario would, if your life played out the exact way that your parents thought it would be, that would actually be the worst thing. Like, imagine that. Right? Imagine if you were going to do the thing that you were supposed to do, like dentist, chiropractor, doctor. How different would this room look like? We would look like a bunch of constipated professionals. And that's one of the biggest things that I first realized. It's not that I needed to wish that life was easier. I needed to wish I was better. I needed to stop wishing for less challenges. I started wishing for more skills. Instead of wishing for less problems, I wanted more wisdom. And then instead of changing the world outside, or if we want to like say, oh my God, like we need to change this there, we can't really just meditate and sage our way to abundance and happiness. We need to start actually looking inside, and instead of changing our, I'm just so excited. I started some creating before this. Instead of actually changing the outside, and I'm talking about the people that are just wearing more crystals, like putting yoni eggs in like places, and just like saging their bodies, the biggest things that we need to first focusing on is not telling how much of the world that, oh, my chaturanga is better than your chaturanga. It's about changing the inside. When that happened, that's when kind of like life just came and, surrendering to what it is that the plan happened. And then that's kind of like, which led me to the next thing, because everyone's like, okay, how did you become successful? How did you build such a big business in so little of a time when you're supposed to be a dentist? And the biggest thing that happened was it wasn't actually of my own doing, but because I was always the dumbest person in the room. I was always a person that was afraid to say something stupid because I was like, oh my God, I'd be judged, but you know what, it was whatever. I killed my ego, and I was like, I'm gonna be the dumbest person in the room for the next 12 months. Because I knew when I realized I was doing everything alone, like, yeah, I could make some money, but the first thing that would happen is I would lose it just as fast as I made it. It got so hard. Like, I remember a story just even recently, right? Like, it was more like life is a pendulum. So I'll go from like super serious businessman hustler to like Buddhist monk, vegan, like just, semen retention, and just everyone thinks I'm freaking crazy, but it's like a pendulum. I recently just came from a super hustler mode, like, oh no, like I'm only gonna static dance 3 times a week, just gonna keep it to the minimum. And it was crazy because I remember I was like building my business and I was focusing too much on what the other speakers were talking about. I was focusing on the money, I was focusing on this thing that was just man-made, created, when I didn't focus on what was actually the money, and that was the energy. And every single time I made the money, it left as fast as possible. And I didn't realize it because I was doing everything all alone. Like, and when you gain some success, you start like being like, oh, I'm special, I can do this, like I don't need anybody. Like, I remember it was like super humbling in January, for example, recently. I had this new business idea. I was like, okay, let's like test some ads on it, right? Let's do some marketing, Facebook agency, like coaching, sign up for my calendar, like whatever. I started building something. We started spending like $100 a day, $200 a day, $300 a day in ads. I was like, how much did we make? Talking to my team, like nothing. I'm like, oh no, it's fine. Like I just read the law of attraction. We're good. Like scale the business up. Like imagine there's people out there that are like, the life is going to shit, and they're like, oh my God, I'm just gonna meditate into it, and then I'm gonna, like what Kevin says, spiritually bypass it and just go to Zest and talk about, my crazy connection with like Like he was a Sagittarius, and oh my God, like I can't even breathe. It's like up in my Kundalini awakening. Holy shit! And one of the biggest things that changed was I remember we were spending $1,000 a day, and I was so much in my ego. I was like, I don't need shit. Like this is fine, abundance. The money will come back. Holy shit! We ended up losing 100 grand in like 30 days. I was like, damn, I freaking suck at business. And that's kind of like when I cancel it, and I know I'm like cutting into the time, but this is all gonna make sense later on. So then for the couple months, I swang back into the hippiness. That's when like a lot of friends here would like just see me at a static dance every freaking day, just like dancing, doing like like I'm possessed. And I swang so far on the other end when I started to avoid everything. And actually one of the things that changed was when I started investing back in myself and stopped focusing on being too still and having the perfect balance between the Buddha and the badass, the monk and the hustler. And I started going to events like this. Like right now, there's something in you. Maybe a little flow state trigger might happen. Maybe someone might have a Kundalini awakening, but something's gonna happen where you're gonna get to that next level. And it's not because of what's happening inside, it's what's happening around us right now. Does that make sense? And what happened for me is I realized I was at this event, a Mind Valley event in Croatia, and I was like, man, why did I fucking leave? Like, there's no villas here, like there's no smoothie bowls, there's just a bunch of meat, like I'm tired of just eating these ice creams. Like, seriously, Europe, it's just ice cream and just like a sausage shop. Ice cream, sausage shop. Anywhere you go in Europe, I'm like, damn, this is not freaking vegan. They're like, oh, you have like plants? Like, no, we have like beef. I'm like, all right. But it ended up being this craziest thing because one of the things that shifted in that moment in time, and I want to share you that nugget before I actually leave, because like Sarah's like, get the fuck off stage. You're being too in flow right now. One of the best things was at the moment in that time, there was this one exercise that changed it all, actually two. The first one was, number one, forgetting all about the money. I always thought about the money because I was always in scarcity. So of course, that's what I'm going to focus on. Like if I go to an event and someone's like, oh, yeah, you just gotta like Reiki it and do that, like you'll succeed. I'll be like, well, what's the technique? What's the actual like thing, what's the button that I need to push? And because of that, I was closing my life off to so many opportunities when I forgot what initially got me there in the first place. So the first thing I did was forget all about money, because remember, money is just this thing that we define it, right? It was made, like it's owned by a private company, like we give it the power, and all it is just like ethereal value in the form of what the definition we give it. Forget all about that. Focus on the big values that you have in life. What are the things that fuel you? For me, it was love, contribution, connection, being in flow, creating a movement, stuff like that. And I started looking at all of the offers, all the things that I was selling, that did not align to my value, that I wasn't aligned with. I just canceled it. And for the next couple of months, I had no idea what to do, because I was like, man, no money's coming in. I'm used to a lot. My ego's used to a lot, but now it's like nothing. And then, you have this like facade of, oh, this is what people see you as, and this is how you need to act as. But then deep down, you're like, fuck, dude, I feel like a fraud, right? Or an imposter. But I remember going back to the initial intention of that exercise once I did that, and that was writing down two things. Number one, what is the magic that I witnessed in the day? And two, what was the intention that I needed to do once I witnessed that magic? Because people are like, oh my God, that magical thing happened. Okay, I'm just gonna go and not do anything about it. And what we realize is sometimes we meet the right people, but we ask the wrong questions. And for me, what changed was when I was like, okay, now I'm gonna do the business all over again. I'm just gonna focus on adding value. I'm not gonna focus on taking. And that's when the next couple of weeks were the craziest weeks of my life. From starting a podcast, to then like interviewing some guy that made $1 million a month profit. Cyrus is coming closer to me, but I'm almost like freaking done. We interviewed the guy, the founder of Gojek, within like 2 weeks of it starting. I'm like, what the fuck, this guy is like $10 billion company? And I'm reverse engineering what actually happened, and it stems to the idea of the U Army, which Adam was like, dude, what's the U Army? What's the U Army? I was like, yeah, this is the U Army, okay? So essentially what the U Army is you find an intention of what it is that you want out of life. And when you have that vision, that main vision, that North Star of what you want, you then write down all the things that you're good at, but most importantly, all the things that you suck at. Your shadow stuff, your darkness, the people that you don't want to share your insecurities, your weaknesses, because you're going to be afraid that someone's going to see you as weak. But what that is just a to-do list of all the people that you need to meet that have the same vision, but where your strength is their weakness. And that's what happened from there. I started realizing, okay, it's not about me, it's about we. It's not about I go, it's about we go. And that's when I started finding a long list of people that I was like, okay, I need to find a way to just add as much value to them, and I won't think of any financial whatever, because remember, money's just energy, and if I give enough people what they want, then I could have anything. And from there was just the craziest couple of weeks of my life. I was like, holy freaking shit. We ended up making the money that we lost back and then some within a week when I started shifting. And instead of me being in like a position of force, I started surrendering to the people around me and the magic that is around me. With that being said, Cyrus is coming up. He's doing like the Singaporean squat right now. So he's going to like come at me with one of those like Tagalong machetes that you see them. So I'm basically done. Aho. Thank you so much. Hopefully this makes sense. And yeah, thank you.